Alright, so we are back here with another video in the making this isometric sort of game series here. If you'll remember last time, we kind of had this map, and we could sort of randomly generate its size and the number of holes and stuff in it. And we'll do more with the random generation later. That was just kind of fun for now. One thing I did change since last time, I made my tile size 64 instead of 32. That way I don't have to mess with zoom at all. I can just kind of center my camera or whatever, and it'll be good to go. I'll probably have to limit the size so it's never like off screen or whatever. But I can always do that later. We're just experimenting right now, having a little bit of fun. If it seems like the video series is moving pretty slow, well, I mean, it takes a while to make a game, right? And plus I want to keep the videos like kind of short and digestible. I don't want to make these like huge, like hour-long videos or something. But anyways, let's get right into it. We're going to do some sort of stuff today that will make it look a bit like a game. So I'm going to make an interface. I'm going to call it entity. This is an interface that's going to be implemented by players and enemies. So let's see, what will they need? They're going to need a public. They're going to need a render because they're going to have to be rendered to the screen. Rich, huh? That's not what I wanted. And what else are they going to need? All entities in the game world are going to need an update function. And for now, I think that's it. We're going to end up adding more stuff to this later, almost undoubtedly. Then we're going to make a class. It's going to be our player class. For the moment anyways. Player is going to implement entity. You might be asking implements, there we go. You might be asking why didn't I just make entity a class that it would have to inherit from? And that's because I don't really want to mess around with inheritance too much. It is useful for grouping things together, but I don't want it to limit me too much, and an interface makes it a little bit easier. So we're using an interface because I want to be able to group the things together, but I don't want to be tied to some parent class too much. Now, private texture, which is just a 2D image. This is going to be the image for our player. Private. We're going to have a position for our player. Vector 2. This is something that's used by, I think, like most game engines and frameworks. Unity has like vector 2 and 3 and whatever for positioning and stuff like that. We need a public constructor too. I'm going to say we're going to have a public. Actually, no, this is good enough for now. We're going to say the batch. I'm not trying to get too ahead of myself. And we're going to say it's going to draw the image at pause.x, the x position of that vector, and at the y position. We're going to say the pause is equal to new vector 2, image equals new texture. And I just have this little, we'll have her change through sort of like animation stuff later. But right now we're just going to set it as this sort of base little girl image. So we're going to call that gdx.files.internal. Woman, then RF stands for right front because that's her right front sort of image. Cool. PNG. Alright, so we have the basis of the player class here. And we're going to also make a move function, which is going to handle the player input. I don't actually probably, or this needs to be private. Probably calling it move is not really a great function name, but that's what we're going to call it for right now. Cool. And we will get to that in a moment. In my isometric renderer, I want to make one caveat to the random generation. I'm going to say that position 0, 0 is always grass, and I'm going to put my player there. Now, that basically means our player just needs to be at 0, 0. But as you'll see in a moment, it actually is going to be a little bit weird if we just plays it at 0, 0, because he's always at the position of the tile that's at 0, 0. And if you look here, if your column and your row is 0, this is just going to be 0 times whatever, and it's just going to be 0. So the player we want at position 0, 0 at not only on the screen, but also in our map. And that's the reason why I'm doing that. Cool, so let's make the player class in here. I don't know if we'll ultimately end up placing our player in here. I don't think we will. As the project grows, we're going to be eliminating this handle input function eventually, and we're going to try to keep this class, which is sort of like the brain for the game, or at least the brain for the game. We're going to try and keep it as small as possible. Cool, so new player. Player has its initial position. We need to render it. Now this is something about LibGdx. In Unity, like rendering is, a lot more simple because you have sort of the editor to work with. Here, like whatever you place, it just cascades down starting once you start to draw with the batch, once you begin the batch. And basically, if your player is drawn here, it's always going to be drawn above whatever is here, above whatever is here. And similarly, if you were to draw something here, and you were to draw it at the same position as the player, it would be drawn over top of the player. So the player has to be on top of the map, which means it has to be below the map. Code positioning for this actually kind of matters. Cool. And for the heck of it, we're going to do player.update. I wonder if this code should actually be above camera.update. I think it should. I actually don't think it like really matters all that much, but I think I've made projects where I've tried both or something. Cool, so there's our player. Now, if you'll notice, this point down here is like our anchor point. It's always there, and our map anchors out from a bigger or smaller. But this is always going to be grass, and it's always going to be there, and that's where our player is going to start. And I think in my game, maybe I'll have the goal for the player to make it to the other side, and we'll have like some enemies or something running around here. Maybe like a required object in one of the tiles he has to collect or something. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with this yet, but we'll see. It could end up getting very complicated or very simple. Yeah, but you'll notice the player's not actually on the tile, and we're going to fix that. So I've played around with these numbers a little bit, and these are the numbers I like. And there we go. Player looks like it's in the middle of the tile, right? So let's add a little input handling. I'm going to not make this A because I want to use A for movement. With that said, I am going to copy this because I'm lazy. And I'm just going to paste it here. I'm going to make this, I'll say W. So when we hit W, we want to move here. And then A is here, S is here, and D is here. It kind of makes sense to me, right? So we want to move sort of over. We want to in negative X direction and up in the Y. So I'm thinking like over by 32, but we only want to move up by a half, right? We're not moving an entire tile up. The bottom of the player is here. We don't want the bottom of the player to be here, and that's what would happen if we would move an entire tile up. I mean, if we were trying to move to this tile, that's what we would want. We're trying to move to this tile, so we only want the player to move by a half, so it's roughly right here. But we want it to move over by a whole, it looks like. Maybe I'm crazy. let's try it out. let's try it out. Let's say we're gonna change the X, and we're gonna take away. Like I said, this is just like a fun little series. It's like just doing whatever I want with it. And if somebody gets something out of it, they discover something that helps them also, that's cool. Yeah, that was dumb. Talking and like coding at the same time doesn't really work out all that well. So let's see. It actually did work, but we need is key just pressed because we don't want it to. There's that problem again where you only want it to read the key once. You don't want it to keep reading the key before you're able to lift your finger up for that frame or whatever. Oh, look at that. It's kind of cool, right? Oh, we'll have to fix this where this is actually going to be really easy where we stop the player from moving into areas where there are holes. Oh no, where's our player going? Actually, we can find our player again if we move our... Ah, there she is. Cool. So, and that kind of illustrates a point about LibGdx's camera there. All right. So else, always be lazy when you can be lazy. S, we want the opposite of this, right? Because we want to move back to where we were. You know, you could have smooth movement for your player. You could just let them snake around in here wherever they want, sort of like that. But I like tile-based movement. I wanted this to be sort of a tile-based game using a 2D array to represent the map and stuff. I find that's like really solid architecture, so that's just like what I wanted. Cool, yeah, now we're moving from tile to tile back and forth. What do we need for the other movement? It's the reverse of this, right? So we're moving in the, what do we want when we press? Come on now. We press A. So when we press A, we're hoping to move down here, right? When we press D, we're hoping to move up here. So that's D's kind of a full move in the Y direction. So actually, I'm thinking these are going to swap. Let's see what this does when I press A. No, I'm wrong. Yeah, I didn't. This is what happens when I don't prepare ahead of time too much of the video. Cool. So, anyways, let me think about this logically for a second. Okay, so when we press A, we're moving the positive X direction. Oh, no, sorry. We're moving in the negative X direction. And the O. And we're moving in the negative Y direction. So we're moving. Both of them are negative for that. Except I still have my numbers wrong. Let me... Both of them are positive for D. Let me go ahead and copy this. Sorry, it's like past midnight. I'm just derping out on this A and D thing. Both of them would be positive for this. Yeah, okay. All right. Now we've got our movement. Is this unintuitive? Should A move here instead of W? But then where would W move? W move here? And then D here and S here? Actually, I think that's probably correct. W. You know what? We'll play around with that later. Whatever you feel is the sort of intuitive way to do the keys. But anyways, cool. So some player movement. I mean, we could make the player movement smoother than this, but we could also lock the player movement. We could say like, okay, well, the player can only move once every couple of seconds. Yeah, let's say that this takes... We're probably going to have to do this later anyways. That pesky float delta thing. That measures the time between frames. Let's just say... this will just be like a fun little thing that I'll do for this video. Next time I think we're going to do some like randomized enemy movement on the map. And we might quickly try to lock the player's movement too. But really locking the player's movement is as simple as just the player having access to the map here and saying like, okay, the player is going... keeping track of the player's position for one thing in the map, and then saying like, okay, the player hit W, it's at this current position in the map, that means it'll be at this current position in the map. Is there a hole there? That's actually really simple because we do have this like architecture of this 2D array that represents our map. We know it's in our map, and we can just check it against where the player is moving, right? So we'll probably do that next time, along with some randomized enemy movement around the map. We'll have to lock the enemy's movement anyways, or he'll eventually just like randomize himself into infinity, right, off the screen. All right, what was I about to do? Just play around with this a little bit. Ooh, time variable, but you never heard of that. Anyways, cool. Float. I always spell float wrong every single time. My hands just want to put that A first. Anyways, so if we're going to say time plus equals delta every frame, add the amount of, I want to say delta is maybe in milliseconds or something, and then if time is greater than 2, let's go with that, then I'm allowed to move, and then we're going to reset time. I think this should make it so I'm only allowed to move every... Okay, what are you mad about? Aha. I'm only allowed to move every 2 seconds. I'm just kind of playing around here, but... I'm stupid. I never initialized this. We'll just say we only want to reset it if the player did move, right? Come on now. This is what I get for trying to wing it and do something at the end of the video. Alright, yeah, we only want to do it if the player did move. We don't want to do it if... Set the time to 0. Yeah, see, now I can only move every 2 seconds. So you can lock the player movement using this delta variable. That way the player is not just skipping and hopping around the map in like 10 seconds, right? And if there's an enemy moving around, that means the player is going to have to be smart with his choices. I think 2 is a little bit long. So let's say, yeah, let's say every 1. It's actually probably going to, we can play with this number and structure this a little bit better. But that's a cool way to lock player movement. Anyways, this video is getting right around 20 minutes. I hope you got something out of this. We're going to continue working on this. Like I said last time, we're going to randomize some enemy movement, and we're going to be probably doing something. Maybe we'll do something with collision with the player next time. I'm not 100% sure we're going to fit all of that in one video, but we'll do something with the enemy, and maybe something with locking the player from exiting the map or from going over a hole. Anyways, it's starting to look somewhat like a game. We've got some mechanics in here now, and I hope you've got something out of it already. I will see you next time.